Every day, you play a role. But what if that role is the very thing keeping you from yourself? Have you ever looked in the mirror and, for a split second, felt like a stranger was looking back? Not in the dramatic, movie scene kind of way, but in a quiet, creeping realization that something is off, that the person you become, the life you're living, the goals you're chasing, might not actually be yours, that you spent years performing, not just at work or in social situations, but even when you're alone, performing confidence, performing happiness, performing having it all together. And deep down, there's a growing sense that you're exhausted, but you don't even know why. Carl Jung didn't believe that people are fake. He believed they were fractured, and that fracture begins with something subtle. The moment you first learned it was safer to be accepted than to be authentic. Maybe you were told to stop crying because it made others uncomfortable. Maybe you were punished for being too loud, too sensitive, too curious. Maybe you learned early on that love came with conditions, and survival meant adapting. So you did. You became what the world wanted from you. The responsible one, the smart one, the polite one, the strong one, the funny one, the one who doesn't complain, the one who always says yes, the one who doesn't need help. And here's the most dangerous part. It worked. People liked that version of you. They applauded it, rewarded it, needed it. So you kept it. And little by little, piece by piece, your real self, the one who felt deeply, thought differently, asked uncomfortable questions, dreamed wildly, was pushed aside, buried. Carl Jung called this mask we learned with a persona, a Latin word meaning mask, taken from ancient theater. In his view, the persona is the social face we present to the world. It's not a lie necessarily, but it is a filter, a tool, a layer of protection we develop, so we can function within society's expectations. The problem is most people forget they're wearing it. You start out using the persona, but eventually it uses you. You stop questioning why you make certain choices, why you stay in certain relationships, why you feel a constant pressure to be something more, achieve something greater, prove yourself to someone, even if you're not sure who. You begin to chase goals that aren't yours, repeat patterns that aren't yours, and live a life that feels scripted, not chosen. That's not failure. That's conditioning. From childhood, we're shaped like clay, molded by parents, teachers, peers, media, religion. We're told directly or indirectly what is acceptable and what is not, what gets love and what gets rejection, what belongs in the light and what must be locked in the dark. And so we edit ourselves. We smile when we want to scream. We shrink when we want to shine. We say it's fine when it absolutely isn't. And we keep doing it for years, sometimes decades, until we confuse the script with our soul. You might be wondering, what's the alternative? Just say whatever I feel, act however I want, abandon my job, my responsibilities, my relationships. No, Jung never said to destroy the persona. He said to see it, to recognize it as a part of you, not the whole of you, to know when you're using it and when it's using you, to become conscious of the mask so it no longer controls you from the shadows. Most people don't live consciously. They live in adaptation mode, in survival mode, in autopilot. But the truth is, you can't be free if you don't know who you are. And you can't know who you are if you don't know who you're not. That's where this journey begins. Not with changing your job or cutting ties or meditating on a mountain, but with a simple, terrifying, liberating question. What part of me is real and what part is performance? That question opens a door to something deeper than productivity or positivity or perfection, a door to the parts of you that have been waiting silently, patiently, to be seen again, the you that feels intensely, the you that questions everything, the you that dreams without limits, the you that doesn't fit neatly into any category, the you that stopped showing up because it didn't feel safe. When you begin to strip back the layers of the persona, not violently, but with curiosity, you'll begin to notice something strange. You laugh differently when you're alone. You speak softer or louder. You remember dreams you abandoned. You feel emotions you've numbed for years. You hear your own voice, Not the rehearsed one, not the filtered one, but the original. And when you hear it, it shakes you. Not because it's loud, but because it's true. Because it doesn't ask for permission. Because it doesn't care if it fits. Because it reminds you who you were before the world told you who to be. That voice isn't new. It's ancient. It's yours. You didn't lose it. You buried it. And now it's asking to come home. But home won't be found in external validation, not in titles or trophies or followers. It will be found in the uncomfortable, beautiful, awkward silence of your own becoming. The persona helped you survive, but it will never help you thrive. To thrive, you need to remember. To remember, you need to pause. To pause, you need courage, not to do something dramatic, but to sit with yourself without the mask and listen. Because underneath the noise of performance and pressure and pleasing, there is a stillness. And in that stillness, the real you is still breathing, waiting. The persona is not a lie. It's a compromise. But a compromise, repeated for too long, can become a prison. When you think of the word mask, you might imagine something deceptive, something used to hide, to manipulate, to cover what's real. But Carl Jung had a more nuanced view. He believed that the mask or persona isn't inherently false. It's functional. It's necessary. It's what allows you to walk into a meeting, a classroom, a dinner table, and participate in the world without unleashing the full chaos of your inner life. In that sense, the persona is brilliant. It helps you survive. But here's the catch. It was never meant to be the whole story. Let's go back to where it begins. As a child, you enter the world wide open, raw, expressive, uninhibited. You laugh when you feel joy, scream when you feel anger, cry when you're hurt. There's no filter. There's no shame. Just pure, unrestrained being. Then, slowly, the shaping begins. Your parents shush you when you're too much. Your teachers reward obedience over originality. You learn that some emotions are good and others are bad. You notice that being agreeable gets affection, while being assertive gets punished. You realize that being unique makes you vulnerable, and being predictable makes you safe. So you adapt, not maliciously, not even consciously. You just want to belong, to feel loved, to avoid pain. You build a version of yourself that works in the environment you've been given. You push down the traits that cause friction. You dial up the ones that get applause. And by the time you're a teenager, your persona is already well formed. You've learned how to dress, how to speak, how to behave, all based on what will be accepted. You've been trained by the culture, by the system, by your surroundings to fit in. Jung wrote that the persona is a kind of coat, a semblance, a crystallized role that is put on the stage of the world. But the danger, he warned, is when people forget that the stage isn't the whole world. You start off using persona as a tool. Eventually, it becomes your skin, the smile that's always ready, the certainty you project, even when you feel lost, the "I'm fine" that you repeat like a mantra, even when your heart is breaking. The roles you play so well, no one ever questions them, not even you. But here's the hidden truth. The persona isn't meant to be evil. It's meant to be temporary. It's a bridge, not a destination. It's how you navigate the external world. But the problem begins when you use it so often, so intensely, that you begin to believe it's your identity. You say, "I'm the funny one. I'm the strong one. I'm the successful one. I'm the one who keeps it all together." But these aren't who you are. They're how you survived. There's a difference, and that difference matters more than anything. Because when you confuse the mask with the self, you lose the ability to hear what the real self is trying to say. Your true self doesn't shout. It whispers. It whispers when you stay in the wrong relationship too long. When you say yes to another project you don't care about. When you wake up dreading a life you built to impress others. When the crowd claps, but you feel hollow inside. The persona is socially constructed. The self is so constructed. The persona is curated. The self is chaotic, wild, beautiful. The persona seeks approval. The self seeks truth. And here's the tragedy. Society doesn't reward the self. It rewards a persona. You'll get more promotions by being agreeable than by being authentic. You'll get more followers by being polished than by being raw. You'll get more likes for pretending to be okay than for telling the truth. So most people double down on the mask and never realize what they're giving up in return. Because behind every persona is a cost. The cost of suppressing emotions, the cost of denying desires, the cost of hiding pain, the cost of never really being seen. You can spend your whole life being loved for a version of yourself that doesn't even exist, and then lie awake at night wondering why you feel so alone. But Jung knew this, and he didn't tell people to reject the persona. He told them to integrate it, to use it when necessary, but not to become it. That's a powerful distinction. You can be professional without abandoning your sensitivity. You can be strong without hiding your softness. You can be composed without silencing your chaos. You can be human, not a projection. The goal is not to destroy the persona. The goal is to outgrow it, to let the real self grow stronger, more visible, more aligned, so that the persona becomes an expression of the self, not a replacement. So you don't walk into rooms wondering who you need to be. You walk in knowing who you are and choosing how to present it. That's the key. Authenticity doesn't mean exposing everything. It means no longer hiding everything. You will still need masks. Everyone does. But now you'll be the one holding them, not the other way around. And that shift from identification to awareness changes everything. Because when you stop living through the persona, you start living through the self. And that's where the real journey begins. Not the journey to become someone new, but the journey to finally return to someone ancient, someone original, someone whole. You. Inside you, there is a division. One part performs, another part hides. One part is praised, the other forgotten. But both are you. You wake up. You check your phone. You get dressed. You prepare for the world. But you don't realize the world has already shaped how you think, feel, and behave before your feet even hit the ground. There's a script already playing in your mind. What you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to feel, who you're supposed to be. But have you ever paused and asked, where did this voice come from? That voice, the one narrating your life, judging your choices, comparing your value, maintaining your image, is what Jung called the ego. In Jungian psychology, the ego is not vanity or arrogance. It's the center of consciousness. The I you referred when you say, I am. It organizes your thoughts. It gives you identity. It manages your story. It creates the illusion of control. But the ego is not the whole self. It's just the tip of the iceberg. And the deeper you go into Jung's work, the more you realize your ego isn't the problem. Its illusion of completeness is. Because when you identify only with the ego, you begin to believe that everything outside of its awareness doesn't exist, or worse, doesn't matter. But the truth is, the most powerful parts of you don't live in the light. They live in the dark. Beneath the persona, beneath the ego, in the unconscious, lives what Jung called the shadow, the hidden self, the disowned self, the rejected, repressed, and often feared parts of your being. Every time you were told, don't cry, don't be weak, don't be weird, don't get angry, don't talk back, don't dream too big, don't be too loud, don't be too much, a piece of you was pushed away, not because it was bad, but because it was inconvenient. And so the shadow formed not as evil, but as exile. It contains all the qualities you learned were unacceptable, and yet they are still you. Your repressed sadness, your unacknowledged rage, your hidden envy, your disowned creativity, your secret longings, your unlived potential. Jung wrote, the shadow is everything a person refuses to acknowledge about themselves, and yet it is always there, unwelcome but present. And it doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It waits. It festers. It leaks out in passive aggression, outbursts, addictions, avoidance, judgment, perfectionism, depression. And the more you try to silence it, the louder it becomes. Not with words, but with consequences. This is the split within. The ego wants control. The shadow wants integration. The ego wants to look good. The shadow wants to be seen. The ego wants comfort. The shadow demands truth. And unless you reconcile these two forces within you, your life becomes a battleground of masks and impulses, where your behavior confuses even yourself. You sabotage opportunities. You push away people who love you. You chase things you don't actually want. You feel empty, even when life looks full, because the part of you that performs and the part of you that suffers are not speaking the same language. And this internal split creates pain, subtle but chronic. You sense it in the quiet moments, in the way you avoid silence, in the discomfort of being alone with your thoughts, in the fear of being misunderstood, or worse, truly understood. Most people live their whole lives this way, as two selves at war, the self that's allowed to exist, and the self that was never given permission. But Jung's genius wasn't just in diagnosing the problem. It was in offering a path to healing. He didn't say to destroy the ego. He said to humble it. He didn't say to fear the shadow. He said to befriend it. Because everything you buried, all that is raw, wounded, and wild, is not your enemy. It's your unfinished story. The shadow is not there to hurt you. It's there to reveal you, to bring you back to the parts of yourself you lost in order to survive, to remind you of what you were before the world told you who to be. But here's the warning. This isn't easy. Facing the shadow means admitting you've been projecting your own pain onto others. It means confronting the roles you play to avoid feeling unworthy. It means owning your jealousy, your judgment, your neediness, your cruelty, not to indulge them, but to understand them. It means saying this too is me. And for most people, that's terrifying, because the shadow doesn't flatter you. It doesn't comfort you. It doesn't give you a polished version of yourself to post online. It gives you the truth, raw, naked, inconvenient. But only in that truth can you begin to become whole. Jung believed that the path to individuation, to becoming your true self, begins with turning inward, descending into the unconscious, and reclaiming what you've lost. That doesn't happen in one weekend or with one book. It happens over a lifetime, one moment of honesty at a time. And it begins with a choice. To stop pretending you have it all together. To stop running from your pain. To stop fearing your contradictions. And instead, to sit with them. To say, I'm not perfect. I'm not polished. I'm not always in control. But I am real. And I am willing to meet the parts of myself I've ignored. That willingness is the beginning of integration. And integration is the end of fragmentation. Because you don't need to be a different person. You just need to stop hiding from the one you already are. The ego is the storyteller. The shadow is the forgotten character. But together, they write a deeper narrative, one that is honest, flawed, human, and finally whole. The greatest suffering doesn't come from who we are. It comes from who we pretend to be. At first glance, the false self seems like a blessing. It gets you hired. It keeps your relationships intact. It earns you praise, admiration, even love. It helps you survive in a world that often demands perfection over presence. But what no one tells you is this: survival always comes at a cost. And that cost is you. The more you perform who you're expected to be, the more disconnected you become from who you truly are. You become efficient, but numb, successful, but lost, admired, but hollow, visible to the world and invisible to yourself. Because every time you silence your real feelings to maintain harmony, every time you agree just to be liked, every time you pretend to be okay because you're afraid of being a burden, you chip away at the foundation of your authentic self. At first, it feels like you're doing the right thing, being strong, being responsible, being mature. But over time, something begins to break. Not on the surface. That still looks fine. But deep beneath the image, a fracture forms. A quiet ache begins to grow. And you can't quite name it, but you feel it, especially in the stillness. Especially when you're alone. It shows up in strange ways. A persistent tiredness that rest can't cure. A constant low-level anxiety without cause. A feeling of disconnection, even in a room full of people. A craving for something, but you're not sure what. A quiet dread in the morning when the alarm goes off. A strange grief that hangs in the background of your day. This is the cost of wearing the mask for too long. You see, the persona, that carefully constructed version of you, was only ever meant to be a tool, not a home. Jung understood this deeply. He wrote, "The persona is a system of behavior that is only partially real, a mask designed to meet the expectations of society." Useful? Absolutely. Sustainable? Never. Because when you wear the mask too long, you begin to believe it's your face. You forget how to cry honestly. You forget how to laugh uncontrollably. You forget how to say no without guilt. You forget what you love. You forget what you want. You forget how to feel. And what replaces all of that? Obligation, performance, routine, numbness. Your life may look stable on the outside, but inside, there's a growing sense that you're a stranger to your own existence. And this is where suffering begins. Not from trauma, not from crisis, but from misalignment. Living out of sync with your inner truth. You may have the house, the job, the partner, and still feel empty. You may achieve every goal you set and still feel unfulfilled, because none of it touches the place within you that's been locked away for years. The false self is polished, controlled, and productive, but it's also disconnected, defensive, and afraid. Afraid of being seen, afraid of being judged, afraid of being rejected, afraid of being real. So you keep playing the role because you don't know who you are without it. And that's the cruel paradox. The more you succeed as a false self, the more the true self disappears. Until one day, you look around at your life and wonder, whose life is this? The false self keeps you safe, but it also keeps you small. It helps you avoid shame, but it also blocks joy. It protects you from rejection, but it also prevents intimacy. And in trying to be everything for everyone, you end up becoming nothing to yourself. But here's the truth Jung revealed. This suffering has meaning. This tension, this dissatisfaction, is not a flaw in your design. It's a message. It's your soul knocking on the walls of your persona, saying, "This is not home. Let me out." That quiet ache, it's your buried authenticity trying to rise. That restlessness, it's your soul rejecting the life you built to impress others. That discomfort, it's your truth suffocating under layers of expectations. And you have two choices. You can silence it with distractions, with addictions, with more achievement. Or you can listen. Listening doesn't mean burning your life to the ground. It means becoming radically honest with yourself. It means asking hard questions. What do I truly want? Not what expected of me. Where am I pretending, and why? What parts of me have I locked away for the sake of acceptance? When did I learn that who I am wasn't enough? These questions hurt, but they heal, because the moment you stop pretending, you begin remembering. Remembering the real laughter, the belly laugh that's unfiltered and wild. The real tears, not strategic, not dramatic, just honest. The real desires, not polished, but primal and true. The real self, not perfect, but whole. And when you begin to remember, something beautiful happens. You stop feeling so tired all the time. You stop looking at others to tell you who you are. You stop apologizing for your truth. You stop abandoning yourself to belong to others. Instead, you begin to belong to yourself. That's not arrogance. That's authenticity. It's not selfishness. It's self-respect. It's not rebellion. It's returning. Returning to the parts of you that were left behind in childhood, in heartbreak, in silence. Returning to the self that doesn't need to be liked to feel worthy. The self that doesn't chase approval like oxygen. The self that knows, deep down, I am enough as I am. That self has been waiting. Waiting for you to get tired of pretending. Waiting for you to stop performing. Waiting for you to come home. The false self will tell you that being real is dangerous. That people will leave. That you'll lose everything. But the truth is, what you'll lose is the life that was never truly yours. And what you'll gain is something sacred. Peace, wholeness, freedom, yourself. The most dangerous mask is the one you forget you're wearing. Most people don't wake up one day and decide to become inauthentic. No one consciously chooses to live as a version of themselves that's disconnected, diluted, or hollow. It happens quietly, incrementally, through repetition, through survival, through adaptation, until one day, you don't even realize it's happening. And that's what makes the false self so dangerous. It doesn't announce itself. It integrates. It becomes the way you speak, the way you react, the way you relate, the way you define success, the way you measure your worth. It becomes the rhythm of your life. But beneath the surface, there's a conflict, a quiet war between the you that performs and the you that longs to breathe. Carl Jung believed that the false self, shaped by the persona and reinforced by the ego, eventually becomes a prison. But it's a beautiful one. It looks like safety. It feels like acceptance. And so we stay. But there are signs, clues that you're no longer living from your center. You're living from a script. Let's look at the most common ones. 1. You say yes when you mean no, not just occasionally, but habitually. You overcommit. You overextend. You people please. And every time you do, a piece of you whispers, "Why am I doing this?" But you silence it because saying no feels unsafe, because disappointing others feels unbearable, because part of your identity is wrapped around being agreeable, dependable, easy. And so you agree, not because it's a line, but because it's familiar. That's the false self. Choosing harmony over honesty. 2. You adapt your personality depending on who you're with. You wear different versions of yourself like outfits. With one friend, you're loud and energetic. With another, you're quiet and agreeable. With your partner, you avoid conflict. At work, you suppress your opinions. It's not flexibility, it's fragmentation. You don't even know who you are when you're alone because you spent so long being what others need you to be. That's the false self. Adjusting your truth to avoid rejection. 3. You're constantly performing, even when no one's watching. You maintain an internal narrator who critiques your every move. You're hyper-aware of how you look, sound, appear, even in your own home. You find it hard to relax, hard to just be, because you've forgotten what that feels like. You live in your head, monitoring, managing, modifying yourself, even in solitude. That's the false self. Living on a stage that no longer has curtains. 4. You seek external validation to feel okay inside. You don't feel complete unless someone praises your work, unless someone texts back, unless the likes come in, unless someone says, "You're amazing," because deep down you're not sure you are, unless someone else confirms it. Your worth is outsourced, and it creates a cycle of chasing approval while fearing authenticity. That's the false self, living for applause instead of alignment. 5. You feel guilty when you prioritize yourself. Rest feels lazy. Saying no feels selfish. Setting boundaries feels like betrayal. Having needs makes you feel like a burden, because your false self was built around being useful, agreeable, likable, predictable. And when you try to honor your inner world, your energy, your desires, your instincts, the old programming kicks in. You don't deserve this. Keep giving. Keep sacrificing. That's the false self. Turning self-care into shame. 6. You don't know what you truly want. You can list what's expected of you, what you're supposed to achieve, what success looks like, what people admire about you. But when asked, "What do you want?" you freeze, because you haven't asked that question in years. Or if you have, you've buried the answer. Too impractical, too risky, too inconvenient. You build a life around should, not soul. That's the false self, confusing expectations with desires. 7. You're deeply afraid of being seen. Not physically seen, emotionally seen. You fear someone might look beyond the mask and find emptiness, insecurity, confusion, need, anger, sadness, desire, longing. You fear being known more than being lonely. You crave love, but keep people at arm's length. You crave truth, but speak in code. You crave freedom, but hide behind function. That's the false self. Fearing intimacy because it threatens the illusion. 8. You feel like an imposter in your own life. Even when you're doing everything right, you feel like a fraud. You question your competence. You downplay your achievements. You wonder when people will find out who you really are, even though you're the one who's never shown them. You smile in photos. You give great advice. You hold it all together. But inside, there's a voice whispering, "This isn't me." That's the false self. Succeeding by becoming someone you don't recognize. Recognizing the false self isn't shameful. It's powerful. This isn't about self-blame. It's about self-honesty. Because what you built wasn't built out of vanity. It was built out of necessity. You adapted to survive. You molded yourself to avoid abandonment. You performed to protect your heart. That is not weakness. That is intelligence. But what helped you survive might now be preventing you from living. And that's the shift Jung invites you to make. Not from false self to perfect self, but from false self to real self. From autopilot to awareness. From performance to presence. From image to identity. From outer applause to inner truth. The false self is afraid of being seen. The real self is tired of hiding. And the moment you begin to notice the difference, even just a little, the mask begins to loosen. And beneath it, you don't find shame. You don't find weakness. You find you, not the polished, perfect, filter version, but the raw, honest, beautiful, healing truth of who you really are. And that is where the real journey begins. You do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung, once you recognize the mask, the performance, the false self, you may feel lost. You may ask, if this isn't really me, then who am I? That question is the beginning of everything. Carl Jung called this journey back to yourself individuation, the process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not extraordinary, not enlightened in some abstract way, but real, integrated, yours. Individuation is a path of returning to the self. Not the ego, not the persona, but the totality of who you are, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, divine and wounded, known and forgotten. And the first step on this path is slowing down. You can't hear your soul if you're moving too fast to listen. Most people live in a state of reactivity, responding to emails, to alarms, to pressures, to other people's expectations. They mistake motion for meaning. They fill their days with noise to avoid the discomfort of silence. But the truth is, your real voice doesn't scream. It waits. And only when you pause, truly pause, can you hear it again. Step 1. Create inner space. Individuation doesn't require a retreat in the mountains. It requires space. In your day, in your body, in your mind. Space to ask deeper questions. Space to listen without interrupting yourself. Space to stop performing, just for a moment. That may look like journaling in the early morning, or going for a walk with no destination, or sitting in silence and letting what's inside you rise. These moments are not wasted. They are where reconnection begins. Step 2. Observe your patterns. Watch how you move through the world. Where do you shrink yourself to avoid conflict? Where do you pretend to be interested, just to belong? Where do you perform strength when you're actually tired? Where do you feel most alive? Most numb? Most lost? Don't judge. Don't fix. Just observe. You can't change what you're not willing to see. And individuation begins when you become the quiet witness of your own life, with compassion, not criticism. Step 3. Reclaim the disowned parts. There are parts of you that have been locked away. Your voice, your anger, your desire, your wildness, your sensuality, your sadness, your creativity, your boldness, your needs. They were put in the dark, not because they were wrong, but because they weren't accepted. But these are not flaws. They are fragments of the self. And Jung taught that the key to wholeness isn't to eliminate what's in the dark. It's to bring it into the light. To say, this too is me. To integrate. To include. To love. Even the parts you were told to hide. Step 4. Begin a dialogue with the shadow. The shadow is not a monster. It's a messenger. It holds your deepest truths. Truths you didn't have permission to speak. So begin the dialogue. You can ask questions like, what have I been avoiding? What makes me uncomfortable and why? When did I stop being honest with myself? What have I projected onto others that actually lives in me? You don't need answers overnight. The asking is the beginning. Jung believed that until we face our shadow, we are doomed to repeat it. In relationships, in habits, in choices. But when we integrate it, we unlock hidden energy, because what was repressed becomes potential. Step 5. Embrace contradictions. You are not just one thing. You are both gentle and fierce, both logical and emotional, both afraid and courageous. both light and shadow, both human and more than human. Individuation is a path of wholeness, not neatness. You don't have to resolve your contradictions to be real. You just have to hold them. You can feel lost and still be on the right path. You can be uncertain and still be deeply aligned. Because the truth of who you are isn't a fixed idea. It's a living process. And the more you allow yourself to evolve, the more you become yourself. Step 6. Let go of borrowed beliefs. Part of individuation is shedding. Shedding roles. Shedding ideals. Shedding inherited ideas of success, beauty, identity, spirituality. Ask yourself, what beliefs are truly mine? What stories do I carry that no longer serve me? Who am I performing for and why? You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to change your path. You are allowed to unbecome everything that was built on fear. Because only then can you build something rooted in truth. Step 7. Live from the self, not the persona. The persona asks, will they like me? The self asks, is this true? The persona asks, how should I act? The self asks, who am I really? The persona asks, what do they need from me? The self asks, what do I need from me? Living from the self means letting go of perfection. It means risking rejection. It means choosing presence over performance. But it also means waking up each day with integrity. It means laughing without guilt, saying no without apology, loving without fear, and walking through the world knowing you belong, not because you fit in, but because you finally fit yourself. The path is not easy, but it is sacred. Individuation is not a destination. It's not a title you earn or a badge you wear. It is a lifelong unfolding, a homecoming, a remembering. It is the most courageous journey a human being can take, to descend into the self and emerge not with answers, but with alignment, to say, I know who I am, I know what I carry, and I choose to live in truth, not illusion. The world may not understand you. Some people may fall away. The old life may crumble, but what rises in its place will not be a performance. It will be you, whole, grounded, radiant, true, and that, as Jung knew, is the only kind of freedom that matters. You are not lost. You are simply buried. And the excavation begins with remembering you were never meant to be anything other than yourself. There is a version of you that existed before the world got loud, before the pressure, before the roles, before the mask. That version wasn't polished, wasn't perfect, but it was real. And though life pulled you away from it, through heartbreak, rejection, conditioning, performance, it never left. It waited beneath every role you played, beneath every smile you faked, beneath every I'm fine you muttered through clenched teeth. It waited for a pause, for silence, for the moment you would finally turn inward and ask, who am I beneath all of this? And maybe, just maybe, that's why you're here, right now, listening, watching, not because you're broken, not because something is wrong with you, but because something is waking up, a deeper intelligence, a forgotten truth, a part of you that is tired pretending, tired of carrying what was never yours to hold. You've spent years trying to meet expectations that were never yours. You played roles you didn't choose. You've kept peace at the expense of your voice. You've worn a smile while your soul was whispering, this isn't me. And for that, let's start here. You are not weak. You are not fake. You are not late. You are surviving. And survival requires adaptation. It requires masks. It requires performance. But you're not here to survive anymore. You're here to return. To remember that who you really are isn't something you need to build from scratch. It's something you uncover, layer by layer, breath by breath, truth by trembling truth. You don't need to find yourself. You were never truly lost. You just became buried beneath the noise of who you were told to be. So let's be clear. You don't owe anyone your performance. You don't need to keep pretending that you're fine when you're falling apart. You don't need to stay silent to stay loved. Your real self, the one that cries, that laughs too loud, that feels deeply, that thinks differently, that dreams wildly, was never the problem. It was a portal. And Jung knew this. He knew that the journey to wholeness begins not by becoming better, but by becoming honest, not by fixing your flaws, but by embracing your contradictions, not by building a new self, but by integrating the one you've always been. Because underneath the persona, underneath the ego, underneath the shame, the fear, the overthinking, lies a stillness. And in that stillness, there is someone waiting, someone ancient, someone wise, someone sacred, someone who remembers what you love, even if you've forgotten, someone who knows what you need, even if you've been afraid to ask, someone who sees you, even if no one else ever did. That someone is you, the real you, not the one who performs to be accepted, not the one who shrinks to avoid conflict, not the one who bends and breaks to be enough, but the one who is born free, the one who is still whole, even if you feel shattered, the one who is still worthy, even if you've been rejected, the one who is still powerful, even if you've been silenced. So here's what you need to know. You are allowed to let go of the mask, even if you've worn it for years, even if it kept you safe, even if people love you for it. You are allowed to stop performing. You're allowed to be awkward, to be messy, to be human. You are allowed to be seen, not the curated version, not the controlled one, but the full, alive, beautiful contradiction of a soul that is finally becoming. Because that's what this is, not a breakdown, but a becoming, not a failure, but a return, not a collapse, but an awakening. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not broken. You are remembering. And that memory lives in your body, in your intuition, in your resistance to what no longer fits. That resistance is not dysfunction. It's guidance. It's your soul saying, this isn't it. There's more. So here's your invitation. Go slower. Breathe deeper. Stop asking who you're supposed to be and start asking who you were before you forgot. The mask was never meant to be your face. The persona was never meant to be your prison. And this life, this one wild, fragile, extraordinary life, was never meant to be performed. It was meant to be felt. Fully, deeply, painfully, honestly, beautifully. And now you get to feel it again as yourself. No more pretending. No more shrinking. No more acting. Just presence. Just truth. Just a sacred, trembling, imperfect miracle that is you, fully seen, finally home. If this message stirred something in you, you're not alone. This is the beginning of your return to yourself. A journey not of perfection, but of presence. Share this with someone who needs it. Someone who's been wearing the mask for too long. And if you're ready to go deeper, subscribe to this channel. Because here at Carl Jung Depths, the journey isn't about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you've always been.